Hey, what's up guys? Lightsaber Samurai here, back again to apologize to everyone watching because this is not the video you've been waiting for. Okay, so as you see, I am standing in the game room right now. I wanted to do a proper game room tour before I got out of here, but as always, time got away from me. There was also some issues with motivation. I just couldn't shoot it the way I wanted to shoot it. Analysis paralysis strikes again. And so, as of right now, I have to tear all of this down because we are moving tomorrow. So, without further ado, we're going to take one more run through of the game room. It's not set up properly the way I want. But we're going to talk about the games, talk about what I collect, talk about my methodology for how I set it up, and we're going to talk about the future because I'm going to be moving into a new space, a much smaller space, so a lot of this has to be stored away and downsized. So without further ado, let's talk about it. Okay, so to start this out, let's just kind of talk about the aesthetic that I was going for when I set this place up. And it started out that I was influenced by, you know, like your Metal Jesus, RGT85, like game sack types that were on YouTube at the time. And the way they were setting it up was kind of making it look like maybe like the room they had when they were kids, or the room they wish they had when they were younger, with just games all over the place and just the whole setup. And so that's what I was going for originally when I was setting up my spaces. But what happened is, over time, as I begin to get influenced by filmmakers like Peter McKinnon on the space, like Andy Gray Films, YC Imaging, and some of the like, I wanted it to look more like a film studio, and kind of made that cross between game room and YouTube studio. And so that's kind of what we got. I basically wanted a game room from an adult's perspective. Overthink Gaming criticized a lot of YouTubers back in the day for their set design and called it the little kids room. And in fact, early iterations of even this basement space, you could see a lot of that in it. I'll show some footage here. This is the two shelves that I used to sit in front of all the time, and you can see how it looked in this first clip where the shelves are kind of bowing and it looks just thrown up there, like all of the stuff looks really trashy, really bad. And then switch to a year or so later, and after I started picking up the tricks from the filmmaking YouTube community, and just kind of how I set the place up after that. So that's what you're looking at now. Okay, I think we're just gonna take a walk around the room. We'll take a look at some of the shots that I like to use often. Like, for instance, first thing we got to talk about is this back wall. Okay, I mentioned it several times, influenced by such channels as Waves and Games, D4 Darius, equals 3, I think was the name of the channel, where they would put with some of those channels, they would put a bunch of filmmaking related stuff, like posters for movies and things like that. Like I said, they were doing the whole look with having the collage of different movie related stuff, and so I wanted to have that, but for video games. Also, I thought it was a set that would kind of always be up. As you look at the whole wall here, you see I never quite finished it and covered the whole wall. There's still holes and spots, and actually the cats kind of knocked a few off, but it was enough where I could always film in front of it. It's something that I would like to incorporate in the new space, but I honestly just don't think I have the room for it, so I'll have to postpone it until we end up in our final destination. But like I said, I used this in several videos. It was a nice backdrop that was game related that I can just plop down in front of and get a video off whenever I needed to do that. And it was good when the rest of the game room was junky and I couldn't find a good angle to shoot from without seeing clutter in the background. So that was good for that. Let's take a look at the second set that I set up here in the game room. Okay, so here I am in front of the backdrop. Viewers will recognize this from my live streams. I like to set up here with my live streams a lot. Also, when I used to incorporate film and photography type stuff on the channel, I would use this backdrop. I still do now that I have a separate film and photography channel, but again, same concept as the poster wall. This was something that was kind of always set up that I can just plop in front of and you know, get a video off whenever I needed to do it fast. So that's pretty much that. Now let's kind of go look around the actual collection of games, and let's start with PlayStation 1. Okay, so if you can look down here, this is where I keep my PlayStation 1 collection, and last I looked on GameEye, I have about 130 titles on the PS1. It's one of my larger collections because I've been rocking PS1 since Christmas of 1998. For those of you who've heard the story before, we never got into the 16-bit era at home. We got a regular NES in 1990 for Christmas, and then that's what we were rocking all the way until we got the PS1. So to go from 8-bit to all the way up to 32-bit, it was a game changer at the time. I had played 16-bit titles over, you know, relatives' house and things like that, but we never owned and thus got super invested into the 16-bit era. So a lot of those games, Super Nintendo, Genesis, TurboGrafx 16, I discovered later and don't have the same fondness for like I do for the PS1. Also, those of you who've been following the channel know, unfortunately, I was robbed a few months ago by an employee who worked here at the complex that I live at, and so I'm still going through litigation with that. Unfortunately, several of my choice titles were sold off before he was caught, and so I'm going through litigation with that, trying to recover that stuff. But honestly, that took a lot of wind out of my sails as far as doing this game room tour and things like that. That happened around October, November, and like I said, that's when I was gonna shoot this film originally, and I didn't have the heart to do it, and I really still don't. But we still got a lot of good titles here, and we'll talk about a few. Okay, talking hardware here, that is the original PlayStation that I had from '98, and later on I picked up this arcade stick and this weird racing wheel that I never used, but I thought it was a cool novelty. I'll pull out some of the choice titles. That actually remain, and we'll talk about a few. Okay, they're kind of a mess right now because, again, I'm in the process of packing them up, but as I go through some of my favorite titles, like I said, the Bloody Roar games, Bloody Roar 1 and 2, love those. Those are fantastic fighting games, and that's a series that they definitely need to bring back. Brave Fencer Musashi is here in the mix. Bushido Blade 2 is a fantastic game. Looking at some here, Disgaea is one that a lot of people don't talk about. It's a pretty gnarly fighting game, as is Guys. And so, yeah, like I said, heavily invested in the RPGs. Unfortunately, a lot of the RPGs I don't have anymore, just because they got stolen. So, you know, sad day there. But like I said, I invested heavily in RPGs at the time because they were some of the only games that I couldn't beat in a weekend. We were just running through games at the time, and I feel like I wasn't getting my money's worth, and so we invested in RPGs. I mean, I got the Final Fantasies and things like that. There's Final Fantasy 9 and Final Fantasy 7 and 8. We got Tactics in the mix, Legend of Dragoon, which unfortunately was stolen and I have not recovered yet. Castlevania Symphony of the Night, same thing. But heavily, I was hardcore into the RPGs, and so yeah, PlayStation 1 had a huge hold on me at the time, and again, some of my favorite experiences in gaming of all time came from this console. So this is one of my most beloved collections within my entire game room collection, and this is where it sits, at least for now. Let's continue. Okay, here we are. The big shelf here is my PlayStation 2 collection. Okay, over here we got PS2, and again, please mind all the crap on the shelf. I'm moving, and so things are going in weird places while I figure it out, but I'm rocking about 170 titles for the PS2. This is by far my largest collection, and this is my favorite gaming console of all time. Again, the experiences I got on the PlayStation 2, unrivaled. Like I said, some of the standouts with the console include... Okay, so right here we got all of the Armored Core games. Armored Core Another Age is upstairs, but Armored Core 2, 3, Silent Line, Nexus, Last Raven, and Ninebreaker. Again, Another Age is the only one that I don't have right here. It's upstairs though, so I got all of the PlayStation 2 Armored Core games. The Bouncer is among one of my favorites. This guy right here, Blood Will Tell. Super rare and hard to come by nowadays, but it's still one of my favorite action games. Def Jam Vendetta, like I mean the list goes on. There's a lot of great titles in here. God Hand, one of my favorites. Yeah, like I said, got some Budokai 3 for you. Again, I got a lot of choice titles on the PS2 just because I never got rid of them. I mean, they were games that I had forever, and you know, because I was heavily Xenosaga 3, I don't know if you can see that, paid $22 for it. And like I said, back in the day, I just hung on to it. Then all of a sudden the game is $250, so who knew? But like I said, at the time, the PS2 was a real step up in just everything. I mean, the games were longer, they were more complex, the graphics were way better. It was a huge advancement in gaming. Like I said, all my Sony stuff, okay, goes along this wall. I'm a huge Sony head. PlayStation, again, down the row, I got PS1. Okay, so I got PS2, and here are my PS3 games. Now, my PS3 collection is hovering somewhere around also 130-ish titles or so. I went hardcore on PS3 a few years ago when everybody was getting rid of the stuff, and now lo and behold, a lot of it is starting to become choice as well. Titles like Ashura's Wrath here are starting to blow up in price. Of course, I got 3D Game Heroes. Like I said, I got Folklore and the like around here somewhere. Drakengard 3 is uncommon. So we got some Drakengard 3 action. What else? Like I said, there's not a lot of titles that are like crazy prices. But, I mean, like, more uncommon titles like Majin and the Hidden Kingdom, right? Or the Forsaken Kingdom, sorry. But, like I said, they have there are their choice games. Shadows of the Dam is starting to hop up in price. Although I also have it on the 360, and the 360 version is the better version to get. It runs better, and so that's where I got it. So, moving down, the bottom here, we finish with PlayStation 3 and we start to move into PSP territory. Now, PSP games, I'm hovering around, I think, 80 or so, 80 or 90. I might be right at 100 PSP titles. This was the console that got me back into handheld gaming after the Game Boy Advance. I kind of forsaken handhelds for years and years, and once I started this channel up again, a year or so after I started up the channel, I started to, ask, what's up with the PSP. I felt like I didn't need to play handheld games anymore because I wasn't in a situation where you'd play handhelds, as in like riding in the car with your dad or sitting on the porch playing or riding on the school bus. Or as an adult, a lot of those experiences were gone, and so I didn't see the need to play handhelds. But man, I was wrong. Like I said, the experiences on these handhelds, man, absolutely fire. And I was so glad that I dove into the PSP in particular, because you have adapters like these here that will allow you to connect them to televisions. And so once I found that I can play a lot of these handheld titles like full-fledged console games, then I was all in. PSP is still a fairly cheap system to collect for. There are their choice titles on the system, but for the most part, you can get a lot of these games still for less than $20. And so I was able to amass a collection of about 100 titles for not much money at all. So, I mean, some of my favorite standouts, let's talk about them. Okay, Guilty Gear Judgment. I did a review on this a while ago. Again, this is a huge bang for buck. It's got a complete game on there that's a full-fledged beat-em-up title, and then it's got, I think it's Guilty Gear Accent Core attached to it. So you get a fighting game and a beat-em-up game all on one UMD. Huge value there. This is another game people don't talk about, Crazy Taxi Fare Wars. This has Crazy Taxi 1 and Crazy Taxi 2. That's important because Crazy Taxi 1 was ported to the PS2 and I think the GameCube and some other stuff as well, but Crazy Taxi 2 showed up on just the Dreamcast. So until this version came out, that was a Dreamcast exclusive, and to get Crazy Taxi 2 on the Dreamcast, you're looking at nearly $100 or more if it hasn't past 100 at this point. But if you just want to play the game, you can get the full-fledged experience here on the PSP for pennies on the dollar. Like I said, if you can see that I paid $9.99 for this game, and it also comes with a bunch of extra content. So again, huge value, and that's what I was seeing with a lot of the PSP games. There's a lot of value that comes with some of the ports and the titles here. Here's another one, Castlevania the Dracula X Chronicles. Okay, it's got a remastered version of Rondo of Blood. Also, you can unlock the TurboGrafx 16 version of Rondo of Blood on here, as well as Castlevania Symphony of the Night, which again, fantastic. You didn't see those outside of the TurboGrafx or the TurboGrafx CD or what, the PC Engine, I think. I don't even think it came out. It didn't even come out on the American TurboGrafx. So you had to get the PC Engine, the Japanese version, to even play that. Let's see other titles. Valkyrie Profile Lilith, also fantastic. I think it's a remastering of Valkyrie Profile that we got on the PS1. I don't think it tells a new story. We got a cool Wild Arms game on the PSP as well. Again, a bunch of stuff. The thing about the PSP, they had all genres covered. Third-person shooters, first-person shooters, RPGs, compilations, 2D platformers, 3D platformers, racing games. The PSP was a fantastic system. It was really the PS2 on the go for me, as far as the types of games that showed up, the graphics and things like that. So PSP, definitely a top tier handheld. Okay, speaking of handheld, as we leave PS3, we start to get into PlayStation Vita. And you can see here I'm fortunate enough to have not one, but two of the Vita TVs. They sit here. I got a vanilla one and then one that I'm gonna mod here. And the PS Vita, a fantastic system like the PSP. Unfortunately, it just didn't get the same amount of traction, and it didn't really have the same amount of variety as far as titles. I honestly think that the library on the PSP is better than the PS Vita, simply because it was more diverse. But at its time, it was the most powerful handheld in existence. The graphics on this thing, some cases, I mean, it was in between like PS2 and PS3 graphics. These are some stunning looking games on this console. It's very RPG heavy, so if you like your RPGs, it's got you covered. It had a really good online store, so you can download a lot of PSP titles, a lot of PS1 titles, and the fact that the console and these PS TVs can be hacked pretty easily now. You can put a bunch of ROMs on there, so I can put the whole like PSP library on one, the whole Vita library on another. Again, I enjoyed the system simply because you can cast it to the television, and we'll talk more about that later. But I started collecting for the Vita once my interest in the PSP really began to peak. But unfortunately, at that time, the Vita was on its way out. I caught the ass end of the PlayStation Vita era. They were already liquidating them in stores when I started to get wise, and unfortunately, I didn't get nearly as many titles as I want. As you can see here, I'm rocking about 27 to 30 titles. I think I'm somewhere in that neighborhood, about 30 titles on the PS Vita, and unfortunately, quite a few games that I want are expensive in price. Let's talk about some standouts on the PlayStation Vita. Okay. First one, definitely we got to talk about Muramasa Rebirth. This is a remaster of Muramasa the Demon's Blade that came out on the Wii, and it's a fantastic remaster. It's compatible out of the box with the PlayStation TV, so you don't have to hack the PS TV to play it, and that's usually how I play it. A fantastic side-scrolling action game by Vanillaware, and a must-have on the system. Okay, another great title. We got the Metal Gear Solid collection. This is Metal Gear Solid Sons of Liberty and Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater. Okay, HD remasters, very similar to the ones that we got on the PSP and the Xbox 360, except now you got them on the go. Again, huge value for the money. The Metal Gear Solid series is one of my favorites of all time, so that was definitely a must buy on the system. Here's kind of a hidden gem on the system, and the system has many. This is Tokyo Xanadu. This is the limited edition that I saw for cheap in the store, so I scooped it up. There is a definitive edition that is on PS4 that you can get, so that's the one that I would recommend. It's definitely more accessible and probably cheaper as well, and like I said, the PS4, I mean, as opposed to playing it on the go, which if you wanted to, the PlayStation Vita can cast to your PlayStation 4, so you can play the games remote, so you can still play it on the go if you want to do it that way, because it's compatible. Okay, Tearaway is a fantastic platforming game that uses all of the tricks that the PlayStation Vita has to offer. Sorry, my camera's not focusing on that, but you get the picture. This was a great game that, like I said, it really used the touch functions of the back screen and things like that. It really used them in the way that they were meant to be used. And again, PlayStation Vita, like I said, it didn't have the same library as the PlayStation Portable, but it's still a very good console overall. Unfortunately, it's just sad that the prices on it have begun to skyrocket. Okay, moving down here, a newer system that I've been collecting for. This is the PlayStation 4 right here on the bottom, and I haven't been collecting for it long, but we got some really good titles on the PS4. And like I said, I will go through these games in more detail at another time, but like I said, I just wanted to get into this. Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. Okay, and this really cool complete edition comes in like this VHS case, and that game is my jam. Senran Kagura Peach Beach Splash, the no shirt, no shoes, all service edition. Okay, say what you want, okay, about that title. I know there's a lot of fan service with those games, but that is actually a really fun third-person shooter. Okay, Oni-chan Bara. Okay, that's also a fantastic game and a fantastic series. Some good hack and slash action. This is a game that needs to be got. Stubbs the Zombie, Rebel Without a Pulse. Okay, this is an HD remaster of one of the original Xbox's most expensive games. Okay, and speaking of the OG Xbox's most expensive games, also we got Metal Wolf Chaos, also as a remaster, okay, of one of the most expensive games you can get on the Xbox. Got some VR titles mixed here. Nothing is in alphabetical order. I usually keep this stuff in alphabetical order, but like I said, things have been crazy. I've been on the move. Here's another game I'm excited to tear into. Okay, Samurai Jack, Battle Through Time. I wanted to scoop this one up. I saw it for 30 bucks in the store, so I snagged it. Like I said, the Shadow of a Coup game on the PS2 is hovering around $70. Okay, Attack on Titan 2. Okay, I got from Game Nut, one of my favorite retro video game stores. I'm on the lookout for the original. Okay, these games are going up in price, so I wanted to snag those up before I end up paying an arm and a leg. If you notice here, we got Gravity Rush Remastered and Gravity Rush 2. Those are also hard to come by games that are rising in price. So, like I said, the PS4, a lot of people were calling the PS4 the second coming of the PS2, and man, were they right. They did everything right there. They were not messing around with the 8th generation and did what they had to do to get that third-party support, and man, did they get it. Thousands and thousands of titles on that console that you can get right now, and it's quickly becoming one of my favorites. Okay, let's move on. Okay, here next to that we got Mario and the Nintendo Wii. I don't have a huge Wii library, but I do have some great games like The Last Story. I got this special edition of The Last Story that's like a storybook. Got that for like 25 bucks. That game is expensive now. Sorry, Mario. So Pandora's Tower, also kind of expensive now. I got that for 17 bucks back in the day. Again, I was not a huge fan of the Wii, a super late adopter, but just watching other people's videos and stuff kind of piqued my interest. This is a great game here that unfortunately is kind of going up in price. This is Dragon Ball Revenge of King Piccolo. This is a fantastic side-scrolling beat-em-up set in the original Dragon Ball universe. This is a game that no one really talks about, so we'll have to dive into that at some point. Okay, of course, gotta have Tatsunoko vs. Capcom. This is a game that the Wii got because it did not get Marvel vs. Capcom 3 like the other consoles. Okay, had some great compilations like the Metal Slug anthology, so I love me some Metal Slug, got all of them there. Just like on the PS2 and PSP, I also got a copy of SNK Arcade Classics. This game runs the best on the Wii, so I had to get this version. I got the other two first. Got it on the PSP so I could play it on the go, and the PS2 because I thought it ran better. But honestly, if you're gonna get one version of this game, the Wii version is the one to get. Muramasa the Demon Blade, like I was telling you guys about. This is the original version of it. It's definitely more accessible than the PS Vita version, but it is going up in price, so you definitely want to snag that sooner rather than later. Metroid Prime Trilogy is another good one, another choice title on the system, and that's about it. So like I said, Sin and Punishment is awesome. That's a remake, it's a sequel to a Nintendo 64 game. Yeah, like I said, we just got, got some Mario Kart in there, Super Mario Brothers, got the Galaxy games, those are must plays. So yeah, the Wii is a system that grew on me over time. I was not a huge adopter of the Wii. I used to go over my homeboy's house and play Wii bowling all the time, and yeah, that was about the extent of it. So I told myself that I wasn't going to get a huge Wii collection, just the titles that I really wanted and the exclusives, and that was it. And that's pretty much what I did. There's like 3 or 4 more titles that I wouldn't mind having on the Wii. I don't need them, but I would say that pretty much at this point, unless I come across something that I hadn't heard of before, my Wii collection is pretty much complete at this point. Okay, next to the Wii, we have a shelf, and you can see this Boeing shelf here. This is what I was talking about, the kids' room type stuff, putting it on these cheap shelves, and then the weight makes it bow. I'm going to get rid of this shelf when I move. It's not coming with me, but I keep my mini consoles here for now. Okay, a lot of my favorites. I got my NES Mini upstairs, but here, the Super Nintendo Mini, which was a thunderous console. Got the Neo Geo one back there. Behind it is the second version of the Retrocade. Much better than the first. That is a fantastic mini console that not a lot of people talk about. And speaking of ones that people don't talk about, I was lucky enough to get that TurboGrafx 16 Mini. So those of you know, I used to own the TurboGrafx 16, and I used to have a bunch of games where I did a video on it way back in the day. It got to the point though where I wasn't really playing the console that much, and so I sold it. And as soon as I sold it, I regretted it. I was like, man, I'm never going to be able to get one of those again, let alone a collection like the collection that I had, which it wasn't much. I had 10, 12 games, wherever TurboGrafx games are hard to find, and they're oftentimes expensive when you do. But sold it to my homeboy at a good deal because I knew he was going to get more out of it than I did, but was lucky enough to stumble across the Mini, which comes jam-packed with a lot of the games that I was missing. And like I said, I got it for about 120 bucks, and it came with 2 controllers also. So it's got the regular controller, but these are 2 controllers from the PC Engine Mini. They work, so that's nice. So I can play with multiple people if I want to. And like I said, the Mini version comes with pretty much every game that I had on the physical collection. So I'm in that space now. I get the TurboGrafx experience, and I don't have to have the console sitting around because, again, honestly, I just don't play it that much. Okay, down here on this bottom shelf, this is where I keep a bunch of my Move games. Okay, if you haven't seen the Move video, I don't know which one is coming out first, that one or this one, but the Move video is probably out first, and you can go watch that. This is my Move collection. Didn't get to talk about all the games in that Move video, but we got to, a good 10 or 12 of them. I got about 50 in the collection. Some of the standouts, one of my favorite, the Dark Side Chronicles. Okay, this is the Resident Evil Chronicles games that came out on Wii. This is both of them remastered for the PlayStation 3, so it's got the nice PS3 graphics and all that. Looks fantastic. I got my random Wii U. Oops, got my random Wii U mote here on the charger. It's covered in dust because I haven't used it in forever. Okay, got my Thrustmaster here, and that's mainly for my VR games. I use the Thrustmaster primarily for playing Ace Combat 7 and Star Wars. The Star Wars airplane game. Can't think of it at the moment. Okay, coming over, second to last shelf. Okay, now it's time to hop into Microsoft again. Excuse all the extra crap that is here. Okay, I'm not trying to do all that, but I'm moving. Got my Switch here randomly, so I was messing with that the other night. But at the top, we got Xbox 360. Okay, so let me come over here real fast. We got to talk about the Xbox 360 real quick. When the 8th generation came around, I adopted the Xbox 360 first because my brother Aaron, whom I play or used to play online games with all the time, he got the 360. I told him to get the PS3. He didn't want to do it. He got the 360. So I got the 360. Honestly, comparing the two, I enjoy, especially at the time, I enjoyed the Xbox 360 more than the PS3. I'm enjoying the PS3 now more simply because I'm finding more games that didn't come out on the 360, exploring some of the exclusives for the system, but the 360, man, could not be denied. Okay, they got a lot of hate with the original Xbox, even though the original Xbox was a fantastic console in itself. But man, they pulled out all the stops when it came to the 360. I've got about 110 titles to 120 titles in my personal collection. And like I said, it had some standouts of its own, man. Taking a look, another Oni-chan game. Honestly, I think I'm trying to get everyone in the series now, so I'm gonna have to do that. Operation Darkness, a fantastic tactical RPG that doesn't get nearly as much love. Unfortunately, it's going up in price. Here's two titles that people need to talk more about. The Naruto games, and not the fighting games. These are open world action adventure games that came out. Naruto Rise of a Ninja and Naruto The Broken Bond. That covers some of the most pivotal moments of the show. Like I said, you got your Halos, your Gears of War, all of that stuff, your Red Dead Redemptions, all of that type of stuff that I used to play. Here's kind of another uncommon one. This is Resonance of Fate. Okay, that's a fun little RPG. Moving up here, here's a game. Okay, moving on, here's another game, El Shaddai. This one's kind of gone up in price over the last year or so. And that is a fun third-person hack and slash game. Here's a game that no one talks about. Is it up here, or did I move it? Okay, no, it's in the next room. Here's a game no one talks about. Okay, here's a game right here that no one talks about. This is actually a sequel to Mad World on the Nintendo Wii. It's called Anarchy Reigns. Okay, this is Platinum Games at their best. This is a fantastic third-person beat-em-up that I gotta stream or something. Like, more people need to know about that game. That game needs to be an expensive, like, rare collectible game because everybody should know about it. It's fantastic, absolutely fantastic. Coming up to the top of the shelf here, here's two Armored Core games, Armored Core 5 and Armored Core 5 Verdict Day. I do have Armored Core 4, and my favorite game in the series, Armored Core 4 Answer. They're upstairs because I was literally just playing them the other day. Metal Gear Rising, Revengeance, one of the best action games. Again, another Platinum Games effort. That game is absolutely fantastic. Got the Mass Effect series. Tenchu Z was fun. Stranglehold was good. The Simpsons game was fun. Like I said, just a lot of stuff. We'll talk more about it. But the Xbox 360, man, that was an absolutely fantastic system. And like I said, I'm just glad I was alive to experience it as the stuff came out. The 7th generation, man, underrated, man. That's going to go down just like the 6th generation, is one of just the greatest moments in gaming of all time. Like, the jump in quality that we got as we went into the HD era, I mean, absolutely insane. Like, just the graphical fidelity and the things that they can do with games at the time, super impressive. But let's go to the black sheep of my collection now, the Xbox One. 30 titles or so on the Xbox One. I collect the Xbox One mainly for the exclusives, and regardless of what people think, there are some really fun exclusives on the Xbox One, and now as I look at my shelf now, I can't find them. Of course, you got your Halos and things like that on there, but here's an interesting game here. Recore is actually a pretty fun game. It was kind of buggy, kind of like a B-list, maybe even a C-list game. Was not a AAA title or even a AA title, but that was an interesting game with some interesting concepts, and when the game was clicking, I mean, the graphics and things, it looked awesome, but it's a game no one talks about. Here's a game no one talks about anymore. I was on the Xbox group on Facebook the other night, and people were telling me, oh, what's some great open world games that aren't Elder Scrolls or GTA? And like I said, Sunset Overdrive is one of them. This is a cross between like Saints Row and just pretty much like any zombie game you look at. It's wild, it's wacky, the graphics are fantastic, the writing is hilarious. It's an absolutely absurd game, exclusive Xbox title that no one talks about. Okay, I promise that there are more. I can't find any at the moment. Oh, here's a series. If you like zombies, the State of Decay games. We got State of Decay 1 and 2. Those were awesome games, especially the second one, because I could play a co-op with my brother. Another one, Payday 2. This came out on the Wii and the PS4 as well, but man, played a metric ton of this game, and I'm looking to get back into that game eventually. That game was just absolutely too fun. Here's another one I want to talk about. Also came out on the Switch, but who cares? This is Demon's Turf. I'm seeing this online. People are trying to sell this on eBay right now for like $60. You can still get this from GameStop. As you can see, I got that brand new for like $25, okay? And I saw it, it looked interesting, and the fact that people were trying to sell it for that much on eBay, I went to GameStop and saw it, wanted to find a used copy, couldn't, and then wanted to see if I can get a used copy on eBay, and then that's when I saw people were selling it for $60, so I went right back and bought it new for $25. It's not as common anymore because it's an older game, but it still pops up at GameStop from time to time, so that's where you want to buy that. Bottom of the shelf now, I got some other titles that aren't OG Xbox, but I keep my OG Xbox stuff on the very bottom of the shelf. OG Xbox, again, I was a late adopter because it was PS2 or GTFO back in the day. I wasn't trying to hear it, but some fantastic games on the OG Xbox. The Halos, I bought it mainly for the Star Wars games because there was a lot of Star Wars titles that came out on the OG Xbox that were exclusive to the system, like the Jedi Knight games. For instance, they had the better version of the Battlefront games, like Battlefront 2. You could use the first person mode and things like that. It was just, the graphics were way better and stuff like that. So a lot of those I played on the Xbox for that, and over the years I've gotten a lot of third-party titles on the Xbox for the same reason I got them on the 360, and that's because they ran better. But when it came to the 6th generation, the OG Xbox games often looked better as well. So let's take a look at some of my standouts on the OG Xbox. Okay, survival horror, you got to talk about The Thing. This game came out also on the PS2, but this is a great version of it here. The Thing was a nice, like, psychological horror game that people don't talk about nowadays. This game right here, Advent Rising, this is my absolute favorite game on the Xbox. It is basically a third-person Halo, and it runs kind of janky, but the combat in it was super fun. You got access to guns, and you also got access to psychic powers as the game went on. You could fight melee, you can fight in first-person mode, you can fight in third-person mode, and it just gave you a lot to offer and a lot of options as far as the combat and the movement and all that stuff goes. Fantastic game that never got the series that it deserved, but yeah, again, that is probably my favorite game. Okay, High up on that list also Jet Set Radio Future. Okay, this is kind of the retelling of Jet Set or Jet Grind Radio that came out on the Dreamcast, and this is a fantastic version to own. Okay, another series we got to talk about, Utage. I got Utage 1 and Utage 2, unfortunately, in this generic case, but one of my goals is to complete that copy someday. Utage is a fantastic series that we got from Sega that was originally supposed to make it to the Dreamcast, and actually there's a lot of games on the Xbox made by Sega that was supposed to be on the Dreamcast, but the Dreamcast, you know, had a premature demise, and so a lot of them we got on the Xbox, which is another reason to own the console, because all those games are exclusive, because I feel like they were trying to take out the PS2 for what it had done to the Dreamcast. So anyway, other titles. Okay, Dino Crisis 3. This is not a great title. It's okay, not as bad as people say it is, but again, it's a sequel to Dino Crisis 1 and 2, and it never came out on any other system, so you gotta get on the Xbox. Here's an interesting one, Dragon's Lair 3D. Okay, this is a sequel to the original Dragon's Lair arcade game that we got, you know, the one that was all basically quick time events. I think you can actually unlock that version on that disc, but what we got there is a third-person action-adventure game set in that universe, same type of graphics, everything. It looks absolutely fantastic, and that is a game that not a lot of people talk about. Again, a lot of games on the Xbox. My collection for OG Xbox is also at about 120 right now, and so I would love to dive more into it in the future. A lot of great beat-em-ups like this one here, Spike Out Battle Street. Unfortunately, this is exclusive and also kind of expensive, but this game is not as expensive as it used to be. We were talking like $200. This game used to be $200, $250. You can get this south of $100 now. It's gonna cost you still about $60 to $80, but I would definitely suggest picking that game up again before it goes back up in price for good. Don't know what happened. Don't know why the prices went down so low on it, but as soon as I seen it at that price, I scooped it up with the quickness without hesitation. Okay, moving on to the final shelf, which is also in the worst shape. I got a bunch of random crap on here. We got a bunch of Nintendo stuff, from Nintendo GameCube to Wii U to my original Nintendo, so let's talk about it. I also got Dreamcast poking in here. So, like I said, starting with the Dreamcast stuff, I only got like 15 Dreamcast games. I adopted it super late. The prices were already way out of control by the time I collected for it. But yeah, like I said, I'm just gonna go through some here. For my Dreamcast, Power Stone, and this is the Sega All-Stars version of Power Stone. Luckily, this game was stolen, but I got it back. Miraculously, I got back almost every Dreamcast game that was stolen, and most of them were, so I was so happy to get a lot of them back, because Dreamcast games are not only uncommon, but they're also quite expensive. So let's see, where is it at? Here it is, Blue Stinger. That's one of my favorite titles on the Dreamcast. It's a great like third-person survival horror game that's actually quite fast-paced, so it's not slow and, you know, kind of slow and creepy like a lot of the survival horror games from the era were. It was definitely more fast-paced, and I appreciated it for that. Going up to my Nintendo, these are the games I've had since the 90s. I don't collect Nintendo anymore, because if I really want to collect Nintendo, I am going to mod it on a system. I don't have the same nostalgia that I did for the 5th gen and 6th gen consoles, so I just don't really care like that, you know. So let's see, I don't really have any standouts. Okay, one of my favorites, let's see, Silver Surfer was always a fantastic but hard game. You got the Skate or Die titles. You got Narc. A lot of people crapped on this game, but shout out to Narc for being one of the few and probably the first game that me and my brothers could play 2 at a time. So that got me all into couch co-op. I say you got Ninja Gaiden. I got Ninja Gaiden 1 and 2. Don't have 3. This one here, no, that's Top Gun, not that one. This one here, if I can reach it, I'm gonna make a mess. There it goes. Xerxes. This one here is a fantastic, like, action adventure game, and it blends a couple of different types of gameplay styles. That game is totally ahead of its time. I might have talked about it years and years ago, but I would like to revisit that in the future. Coming up here again, I got a few Dreamcast games. Not a huge fan of the Dreamcast, but the GameCube. Not a huge fan of the GameCube because a lot of the experiences I got on the PlayStation 2. Okay, I went to the Xbox for graphics. Okay, so the only thing that was really getting me to the GameCube would be some of the exclusives. But I'm not a huge fan of the Mario games like I used to be, so I honestly don't care. I'll tell you though, PN number 3, fantastic game on the GameCube. That's an awesome third-person shooter. It's got some issues. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. Okay. Let's see, I was lucky. This game got stolen. I was lucky to get Eternal Darkness back. That is a game, Sanity's Requiem. This is a really cool survival horror game that's exclusive to the system, and that's quite expensive. And the last game I want to show you, as I knock everything down, Metal Gear Solid, The Twin Snakes. Yes, that was a Goodwill find. It's complete in box, and I got it for $3.99, and I damn near shit a brick. Pardon my language, when I found it, because I couldn't believe it was expensive back then when I saw it, and I couldn't believe that it was $3.99. That was a game that I thought I would never get and be one of those games that I would just always wish I had, but I got lucky somehow, and there it was. So, again, last but not least, let's talk about the consoles. I got 27 consoles in my collection. R2-D2, Xbox 360, with the match and connect, had to have that. Okay, got the C3PO controller and this other metallic controller that just kind of also reminds me of R2-D2. So I found this in a pawn shop and just picked it up, and now that matches that. That is my OG Nintendo from back in the day. I got a PS1, would like to get a screen for it, and my Nintendo Advantage controller. Okay, we got the Halo 360. One of my fat PS3s that's backwards compatible fully, my PS2, and my PS2 Mini. Got the Retron 5 for my Game Boy games, which I got a few. I'll show you those in a minute. The main PS3 that I use, Xbox number 2, the Halo edition. It's having some issues with the CD drive. I got to get it fixed. Dreamcast, GameCube with the Game Boy player and the Game Boy disc. So I'd like to do a comparison between Game Boy games displayed on this and the Retron at some point, so let me know if you want to see that. My PS4 that's not hooked up right now, that's more stuff to my PS4. Wii U. My Xbox One. Got another Xbox One around here somewhere. I don't know where I put it, but it's around here somewhere. And then, like I said, we got a Wii down here in the corner. Got my PSPs. Okay, my Hannah Montana, don't care what nobody says, that's my favorite one. I got a black one upstairs that I play, it's my main player. That's the white one, but not just any white one, it's the Darth Vader. Okay, so that's dope, gotta have that. And here is a PSP Go, and like I said, I got it over here with my Vitas, and this is the PlayStation TV. Okay, and eventually I'm gonna put up a setup where I play my PSP Go. Okay, I gotta get the dock for it, because once I get the dock for it, then I'm gonna mod it and put all my PSP games on there. Gonna put all my Vita games here, and then I'll have it hooked up to my PlayStation. That's actually Sony PlayStation brand television. Okay, that's also 3D compatible. Okay, so we definitely want to talk about 3D games in the future. And then this is my lights that you can't really see. Okay, if I turn down the f-stop here, you can see it there. It's a cool PlayStation light. It also always hangs out in the background. So anyway, that is pretty much my collection in a nutshell. I have right now about 1,100 games total in the collection. And like I said, I started collecting in 2016, 2017. So I collect, but I don't collect hardcore like that because I ain't got money like that. So, I mean, the deals are still out there a little bit. You definitely have to hunt a lot more. We'll have to talk more about game collecting in 2023. And I have to make that because Professor Joe Casey in particular was asking me, like, how the hell did you amass these games in Wichita, Kansas? Because as we looked around, it was quite dry compared to some of the places that he had been. So he asked me, like, how do you collect? And I don't just buy everything off of eBay. So we'll have to talk about that in a future video. But guys, that's the game room. It's not the video that I wanted to give you. I wanted it to be more cinematic and I wanted it to look a lot cooler than it does. But what do you guys think of the game room? I am tearing this down as soon as I turn off the camera because we move tomorrow. So again, I'm really sad about that, but this space, when I moved in here 3 years ago, I knew that this was going to be the space that really started me out. I was going to do good things in this space, and I did. Got my first 1,000 subscribers, almost at 2,000, okay? I would be a lot further if I were more consistent, but that is something that I want to do. Hopefully, when I get to my new space, I'm going to be more prolific. When I checked out the space, like just the energy I had, I felt rejuvenated. Unfortunately, the game room isn't going to look as cool as this one because I don't have the same amount of space, but I am excited to get to filming again. So, like I said, it won't be in this cool space, but we're still going to give you the cool content. So, if you like this, go ahead, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't done so already. You'll be glad you did. I do believe that's all I got for you. Lightsaber out. Peace.